Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are in Nocona, Texas, where we will be visiting the Tales and Trails Museum. It's a little wet outside, so let's get in. Okay guys, we are inside now and we are about to watch a special little thing for a few minutes, and I'm going to show you a couple minutes of it, but explain it to you after, and it has to do with this right here. We're starting off with a bang.
The first well drilled in North America was started in 1806 and completed January 15, 1808 at a depth of 58 feet, 40 feet of that in bedrock. The well was drilled by a man-powered spring pull and packed cable tool and was a well for salt brine.
Okay, so what we just learned was that this right here is actually a sixth of the size of what actually would have existed. This is a Fort Worth sputter model, and this is called a Super D. Now these things were crazy, and the video was actually telling us a little bit more about it and how deep it could have gone. Now these particular kind of drilling rigs were used for quite some time, and they used this little belt to get things done. They were replaced by what we more modernly use, but this is Montague County, and we are in the heart of what was once known and still to some extent is oil and gas country. Now as you first come into the museum, you'll see these little displays like this, and on top you'll notice that there are a lot of boots. That's because we are currently in the home of Nocona Boot Company. That's right, that's where all of those magnificent boots that you've seen probably all over the place have likely come from. And look at this, we can see some of the big ones on the top there that have logos and insignias. There's some amazing designs right here. Look at that detail, that is amazing. But as we kind of walk around, you can learn a little bit more about the different kinds and styles, and that's what this community is known for, boots. But of course, there is a lot more to Nocona than just boots. And as we go through each one of these halls, we're gonna find out a little bit more. We've already seen a little bit of the oil and gas industry. We've seen the boots. What's next? Let's go find out. Now just inside this door, they have something that is kind of fascinating. It's called the Indian bathtubs. It says here that this unique excavation is actually located at the southern boundary of the Running High Ranch. This ranch is located north of the town of Bowie near Stomberg, and they actually found these hard sandstone areas that were carved out in the bluff. Now some of the things that we're going to see in this museum are similar to other museums we've been to, and then others are completely and totally unique. But I will say this is recently renovated in this particular area, and it's absolutely awesome to come in and check out. They have some beautiful artwork, some artifacts, tons of arrowheads in this section, and these two video sections that we're about to check out right now. And then what is this? So today I have my mom with me on this adventure, and she actually told me about this museum, and she is doing a, what is this, Mom?
A scavenger hunt. Wow. So I can look for all of these items.
Okay, so they have two versions of this from what she was just telling me, and what's the difference between the two versions?
The second version has more pictures, and it's easier for the younger children.
Okay, so they have something that is designed for the young or the young at heart here, and Mom's gonna see how many of these she can find. But for now, let's go push the button. Here we go.
Oh,
that old Red River, it keeps right on flowing, just like history. There are plenty of twists and turns, all right, and different kinds of people have passed this way for a long time. Some stayed and made this place home. They made a mark on the land, and the land made a mark on them.
Okay, so part one of the video down, and again, this is broken up into several different sections, and this actually is an award-winning presentation. So I'm really excited to see what else that is in store. This one talked about the Red River and the cowboys that came to this area and the start of Nocona Boot. And right next to this, there's something that says, touch it.
Okay.
Do we dare? Okay, Mom's the brave one today. Oh wow, that's a bone. What kind of bone is that? Huh, it's pretty big. Ooh,
And look at the crack. It's got a crack in it. Okay, so this is probably some kind of cow, buffalo, horse. What is this? What else is in this? Oh, look here. Oh, now that is an antler. Right there. Somewhere a deer is missing an antler. Oh, look at this one. Uh-oh, we have something else in there. Oh, now this is a horseshoe game. I know how this goes. So like I said, there's gonna be lots to touch, lots to watch, and lots to learn about. And this next section of the museum is, from what Mom was telling me from her previous visit, her favorite section of the museum. What animals did the Plains Indians hunt? Oh, I don't like this one already. Oh, we're lifting up the bunny. Oh, it's the little jackrabbit. There he is. And with each one of these, it has actually a pelt that you can feel. Oh, poor little soft bunny. And then also we have the buffalo right here. And this one is much more coarse and a lot longer than the bunny. Look at that. And then next to that is a deer. And it looks like lots of people have touched this deer. And then what is this, Mom? Shows here that they have some little iPads that you can actually swipe left or right to view different slides.
Like a timeline?
Yeah, like a timeline. That's really cool. Okay, so you're gonna push the button and
That's neat.
there you go. Okay, so this is the migration map, and you can see kind of the area that we're in is the little star right there. So right there. And in this area, you would have had the Wichita, and then just a little bit of Osage in there too.
Which killed more Native Americans, war or disease? What do you think?
I would say probably disease. Yeah.
That's true.
In the late 1700s, for example, 1/3 of the Tobiah village was wiped out by smallpox. That's terrible. The next one.
Which two animals were most significant to the Southern Plains people?
I'd probably say the buffalo being one of them, and maybe deer. I don't know. I don't know on that one. Maybe
Buffalo,
a horse.
definitely.
Horse maybe.
Horses.
Ah, horse. Yes. And then bison, so buffalo, significantly impacted the Southern Plains Indians. And we've learned at some of the sites that they used the buffalo for every single thing that they did in their villages. For example, we learned at one of the places that we went to that they would use everything from the bladder to the fur to all the little bones and pieces for things around the village. And there's lists upon lists of things that they could do with this, and it's crazy how resourceful that they were. So what Mom's standing next to right now is actually trade goods. And tell us about trade goods, Mom.
Well, these are just some examples of what they might have traded. The glass beads were a favorite from what I've read, and they really liked the blue color.
Okay, so these would have been traded with people who would come to the area, including the French, Spanish, or English traders. So things like this right here would have been called trade goods. Okay, Mom has the Texas Heritage magazine right now, and she had it open to this little section right here that's talking about something really, really neat. It actually has Nocona mentioned right here, and the members of the Whiteside family, they had these pieces right here. But wait, look, there they are. These are huge. These are not just your typical arrowheads. These are actually bigger than Mom's hand. These are like spears right here. Can you imagine finding something like this? Now underneath all the displays we were just looking at, they have these drawers, and you can come in and pull out these drawers, and they have even more to look at. So each one of them are classified, and then they have these little descriptors as to what they are along the way. So you could be here for hours just looking through each section. So Mom, you told me this was like your favorite room because of all of this. Are you excited to be back?
I am. It's been a while since I've been here, but I love these drawers that you were just showing.
Definitely, and they've made a couple of improvements since Mom was here. So in the next room, in just a minute, we're gonna see something that is brand new. But first, let's check out this other video that they have in this really, really neat enclosure over here. Right over here, that looks like a house, right? Yeah. Okay.
Native American groups of hunters and gatherers once moved across this land on foot. Spanish explorers introduced horses in the 1600s, and Plains Indians became expert riders. The Wichitas were expert farmers and traders as well. Various tribes came there with horses and hides to trade. In exchange, they wanted guns and ammunition supplied by French.
Now, as you come through each one of these displays and interact with it, it gives you a better understanding of the people who once were here and who actually had roots in this community long before people kind of came here through immigration. So it's nice to be able to see and respect the cultures that were actually in this area that still have ties to this area to this day. And so the more that we go through this particular gallery, we get kind of a visual of that. And then as we walk past places like this over here, they interact with us directly by talking to us. So we get to learn a little bit more even than that. But next, we're gonna be walking through something quite large and in charge. Right over here, we're going through a teepee. Okay, it looks like Mom has found something that's on her list. That is the bison skull.
Yes, right behind you.
And there's that bison skull that Mom found right there next to this display. I think we can touch it. I'm not sure. Okay, clearly this is not a touch screen after all, but it's really neat because it tells you how the different people would have been, and they would have kind of had this whole perimeter going on. So here is the actual chuck wagon itself, and then you would have somebody known as a point rider and a trail boss. There's another point rider. Then you have swing riders on both sides, flank riders, and then drag. And then you have somebody known as a wrangler. I wonder if this is the guy who went and rounded up everything that was stray. Maybe. And this is really neat. So a lot of times whenever we're traveling, you know I like myself a good interaction. So I found this. Okay, now much like a lot of the places that we go to, they do have interactive touring sections. So you can just hover over these right here and download the app. And then after you download the app, you can find different points of interest within the museum. Let me show you, really cool. And if you aren't able to come out here to Tales and Trails, you can actually interact with this one at home. Okay, so Mom just downloaded the AutoCast app, and that's OTOcast, and then you can go and find a variety of different places that are covered in the app. So today we're going to go to Tales and Trails, which is where we are. It's going to give you a visual of what this looks like on Google Maps, and then as you can see, there's a few little pins that you can click kind of throughout. And as you click them, it allows you to then go see a text version. And then also,
the Tales and Trails Museum's leather goods exhibits feature artifacts and stories from a large number of leather manufacturing businesses.
So like I said, you can actually go and download that and check that out at home if you're interested, so you can deep dive a little bit further into some of the subject matters here at the Tales and Trails. And I definitely encourage you to do that. So in this section, we do learn a little bit more about the Chisholm Trail. And the Chisholm Trail actually made a stop here in the Nokona area as the last stop before they would push on into Oklahoma, because the Red River is just a hop, skip, and a jump outside of town. So this area actually was thriving as a result of that, and you would have hundreds upon hundreds of cattle coming through this area. So that's why they would have these little trains like this and some of the displays like these. And then this is about the Chisholm Trail, isn't it, Mom?
Yes, how far did the herds travel? So let's find out how long in a day.
In a day. Okay, click that again. And in a day, it shows right there, just a little dot. Okay, try in a week.
Oh, wow. So then there's 4 dots. Okay.
Okay. And then now in a month.
In a month, all the way. So they would travel from the Red River Station right here in Nokona all the way up to Kansas in 1 month's time. That is insane. Now, of course, I've made that drive many a times in like a day, but that's me in a car. That's not me on horseback like this right here. And that's certainly not me having to round up a whole bunch of cows along the way and make sure they have food, water, everything else that they could ever possibly need. So 1 month to get from Nocona, Texas to the middle of Kansas, riding like this. We just learned some crazy facts. So because of the Chisholm Trail and the other things that were going on in this area, the population actually took on a surge. Like a big one, like a big one, guys. They went from under 1,000 people, specifically 890 people, to over 24,000 people within less than 10 years. That is crazy. It's amazing to see how the impact of something can like come through a community and either build it up or like tear it down. And so this entire section that we're in right now is talking about how the Chisholm Trail actually impacted this area so greatly. And then along these little sections right over here, you can actually find more pictures, more information, brands, saddles, all sorts of really neat things. And then we get into this section that has these awesome like storefront buildings. So we can go into each and every one of these, like the mercantile or like the dry goods shop right here, and see what might have been inside of those places at the time of the Chisholm Trail. Next up, we're going to go into our drugstore, which is also Fat Edward's Barbershop, and it has Dr. Wilton, MD, physician. So here inside, there's a little bit of everything. It looks as though there's some definite doctor nods in here. You can see the chair back here, and then over here you would have had several of the different things that would have been used in the barber shop with the barber cups there. And then we have some optometry things, as well as an antique optometry poster. There's the medical symbol. And then right there's the barber pole. Now, why are all these things together? These are not things we would commonly think of belonging in one display. However, it says right here that the barbershop was actually the place that was responsible for not just the nice, snazzy hair, but also for taking care of a lot of the medical needs of the community. So a lot of times the doctor/barbershop would be where all that happens. And as you visit this section and others, you'll find these little screens that actually have historic photos from the area. They also have some of the people who were in this area, and I think that that's what's really cool about more local museums, that some of these people in these very photos might be related to people who still live here today. Right here in Montague County, they didn't actually get electrical services until much later than other places in Texas. They were super rural, and because of that, a lot of times they would just have to keep relying on things like this until finally electricity came. And that wasn't until the 1939 era. So for many, many years in Texas, no electricity in this part. It's kind of insane to think that, you know, we just go flip on a light switch, but that wasn't always an option. And as I move into this section, there's a speaker above me with something else. It is the coming of the railway. And this right here is a massive train that is the Texas and New Orleans Railroad steam train. That's right, this one right here was actually built in 1913, and they have a little blurb about some of the other railways and what brought them to this area right here. If you aren't familiar with this particular section of North Texas, Montague County is not the largest county. The largest community within that county, however, is called Bowie. However, whenever the communities were all starting to be established, Bowie was kind of an afterthought town. There were other communities in the area like St. Joe or Spanish Fort or Nocona, but the community of Bowie was only a tent city. They weren't actually a stop on the railroad, thus official, until quite some time after the others. So the train actually validated the town of Bowie, which is now the biggest town. That's just kind of how it worked, guys. Like, unless you could be of value to the trains or to some part of the cattle drive, you know, your value wasn't there. You didn't exist. So this section right here talks about the inception of Bowie because of the trains. Now, remember how I showed you all of those boots in the opening room and told you to look on top of all of the displays? Well, if you're fascinated with the story of the boots, you'll want to come and check out this corner right here, which actually tells you the backstory on how the boots became the boots. And it actually was a family who had moved to the area just because they could more easily ship out their boots via the rail. So see kind of how this museum is set up. It's telling us the stories and how they interconnect. The cattle drives brought businesses. The businesses then validated the train placement, and the train made other businesses possible. And I think that's so cool. The story of the boots here is really a good one, and it tells you, like, from kind of the inception of the idea to kind of how the shipping worked and the backstory on the individuals. And then they have some really, really cool things that kind of show you how they would make the boots too. So tons of good information in this corner if you like boots. Like this is the adjustable metal boot pattern for a two-piece boot. And then you can also see over here some of the forms and then the other boot making tools. And again, these all have little signs as to where they came from. But my real question is, whose ankle is that tiny? Like real life, whose ankle is that tiny? Because I absolutely know it is not mine. No, it is not. This is Miss Enid Justin, the founder and president of the Nokona Boot Company. And again, there's a screen with some photos. And there's also some other photos, but this is Miss Enid coming to life before us.
Well, I'm Enid Justin. I'm 78 years old. I have my own company in Nocona, Texas. We have a nice little town, and my friends are there. I grew up in a boot industry with my father, the late H.J. Justin. Actually, boot making is the only thing I know. I was very close to my father, and we were real good buddies, I'll tell you. And I can see now that I absorbed all that I possibly could of his training. One row of stitching, and I used the machine that I had to pedal. I could not control an electric machine now like we have. I stitched boots before and after school and on Saturdays. I organized in 1925 this company when my brothers went away. My older brother said, "You're going to lose every cent you have in 6 months." And I said, "Well, if I do, Mother's taught me how to wash and iron and cook and scrub and keep house, so I don't think I would have really come to that thing." Personally, I'd rather wear out than to rust out. I will say to everyone I've met here, just please stay as sweet as you are. Thank you.
Now, Miss Enid here is actually created by the same people who create the animatronics for Disney. So I think that that's really awesome. And so she is very lifelike. Her mouth moves, her eyes move, her skin moves. It's really neat to watch. And so definitely sit down, take a little time, listen to the rest of what Miss Enid has to say. You will not regret it. But Nokona boot is not the only industry in this area. There's actually a very, very famous other industry here, and that is in the baseball industry right here. You may have seen the gloves that come out of Nocona, Texas on some of your favorite MLB players. In fact, they create
so many gloves that they've been known by the likes of Nolan Ryan and many other famous pitchers. And it's really cool because you can take tours just across the road over here at the glove factory. So that's something to also think about and might be a future video. But in this museum, you can actually find a section dedicated to that very industry as well. Now again, guys, anytime that I come to a museum, I can only show you parts of it. There's just so many cool things. So in this one section alone, tons of additional things that we didn't even get to go over. We're moving through the gift shop. We'll be back here in a moment, and we're going to a special exhibit room where they have a beautiful display of some different art and then also some photos. So let me show you those. Now the display in this room is a special exhibit. However, they're extending it through at least the end of summer. So if you come here before the end of summer, you can check this out. It is amazing. The research that has been done for each of these photos is insane. You have a little blurb to tell you a little bit more about the people in the photo themselves. Now, this is cool because these photos are all from the early 19th century. And so they are very, very old. They are very fragile, and normally these wouldn't be something that we could put in our hands and see. So we are instead able to look at them in these display cases and have a backstory, which never happens. So come and browse through, and I'll show you a few of these right now. Right here we have family portraits, and it actually tells you who the photographer was on some of these, and then also who the people in the photos are. For example, this one at the top corner here is Mrs. Anna Blessing. It was originally from around the 1870s, and they have the photographers listed as Blessing also. So that's pretty neat. And again, each one of these is a little display card as to who the photographer was, who it was about, and then you can kind of match it up to the pictures themselves. And then in addition, you can also find this collection of cameras, and some of these are so neat. Like, I would really be interested in learning a little bit more about this one that has the massive yellow light on top. Like, at what point did we decide that this could be a camera right here versus something huge like these down here? This entire section actually is from Native American tribes, and they have photos of different Native Americans. And this is such a treasure because it tells you the history of each and every one of those and the context of the photos. So these are some things that, you know, have such a really huge historic relevance and tell the tales of the people who many times we don't hear their stories. Now, after seeing that, I decided we needed to come into the gift shop and take a look around, and there's some really neat things. We've just been told that anything that has a green dot is actually locally made. So lots of Montague County residents represented here in the gift shop. So let's go see kind of what we can find and see if there's anything we need to take home with us. Now this is actually pretty cool because you can go in and find the county records that have been put onto disc, and you can purchase them. So this is like the marriage book, and it's G, and this is from 1899 to 1903, and you can go through and find different ones there, or you can come over and find more of the historical documents like this one. This is Spanish Fort. And then here they have different interviews that they've done, and also several different years of these. So you can come in and check out more of the historic interviews. Oh, but wait, we're not finished yet. You thought that because we were going through the gift shop we were done? No, no, no. We're just finished with the indoor space, and now we're gonna take it outside. Now, since the sun has come out, we have some sunglasses. Now we're going to explore a couple buildings outside. They have some really neat stuff going on, and actually a little marker for the Chisholm Trail here. Now, between 1867 and 1884, over 5 million cattle came through this area. That's a lot of beef going through this little area in Texas. And it was all because of, again, the Chisholm Trail. So this whole community just sprung up and started to thrive, and they had all sorts of really interesting influences that would come through as a result of the movement. So when you actually explore in the town of Nokona, still to this day, you can see some of those in the existing buildings. Definitely encourage you guys to go to downtown and check out the French influences. There are so many and it's so cool to see. But enough of that, let's go to these other outdoor spots. Now remember that first display that I showed you? That first one that I talked about, the oil and gas industry? Well, this is actually affiliated with that. They have a few different things out here that'll show you kind of how the oil and gas industry would work. And this one is the pumper's house. The pumper would be the person who would oversee the actual well to make sure it was staying productive. And so this is what it might have looked like. And again, if you look at this, there's another one of those little QRs. Definitely keep your eyes open, guys. Let's go inside. Random, but do you remember that part of Willy Wonka where they're like at the licking wallpaper and he's like, this tastes like this, the schnozberries taste like schnozberries. I don't think we're gonna lick this, but it definitely has fruit on it and it reminded me of that. I know, random. Now, while we're inside, you can find different things in each individual room that might have been from the time that they were being used. So you can find little decorative items like these and radios and this, which I think is a loom of some kind. I'm not sure, but it kind of looks like it. And then you can find different period clothes. And in the kitchen, you can find actual pieces of what the kitchen might have looked like. For example, stove, very different than now. Sink, similar. Layout, very different. Now, what's interesting that Mom and I were just talking about, hang on, let me ask her. What'd you just say, Mom?
To say this house looks a lot like that very first house that your dad and I lived in.
So it was probably an oil house.
Yes, it was. The man that we bought it from brought it in from the oil field many years ago. And it was very similar. I mean, it had some upgrades, of course, but over time we did upgrades and the people that live in it now did more.
That's kind of the cool thing. Whenever you come to places like this, you think, oh my gosh, it's so old. It has no relevance today, but they do still have these kind of homes kind of scattered throughout this area, especially because this is, you know, what was here. Yeah. So it's neat to see that and kind of have that little piece of history. So let me show you a couple of the items that I think are my personal favorite small items in this house. We have left the pumper's house and now let's go look at a couple of pieces of oil field stuff that you may not be familiar with, or you might, I don't know. One thing I do notice, we're not gonna get too close to it because I see a very troubling sign just ahead of us. This would be the sign in question. Inside that first exhibit, we saw something that was a small version of this right here. Look at how big that thing is in reality. That thing is huge. To kind of give you a reference, beside it is a very large barn. And look at that. Huge. And then something you might be a little bit more familiar with, these are some of the tanks that are used commonly in the oil processing. So this is what you might find at a typical oil site even to this day. So that's kind of cool. It's really neat to come out here and see those things and kind of get a size. Because a lot of times whenever we see a model inside, they don't appear that large. So it's kind of hard to understand just how big they really would have been. And again, huge, just huge. Now inside the barn area, they're also working on some additional exhibits that will probably be ready whenever you come and visit. And outside they do have some farm equipment. Unfortunately, they also have a couple more of those little sneaky snake signs. So we're gonna be avoiding that today just because this is about the time that they would come out. It just rained, now it's warm, it's sunny. They're trying to get that little sun in. So instead, we're gonna make one last stop inside, pick up a couple little souvenirs, and then we're gonna hit the road for our next adventure. If you've enjoyed today's adventure here in Nocona, Texas, I hope that you will hit the like, subscribe, and check out future content on my channel. I do upload adventure videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I have really fun van life stuff on Saturdays in my special uploads. Till next time, guys, bye!